high-profit crops to become a farming millionaire. It's funny, whenever we think of high-income businesses, we think of the usuals. Wall Street, Hollywood, Silicon Valley, all of these glitzy high-tech industries where suited and booted investors mill about. But what we don't think about as often is farming. But as surprising as it may sound, agriculture can be an extremely lucrative business. But what sort of plants do you need to grow to be successful in an industry that contributed $136 million to the US economy last year? Stick around, because we'll be delving into just that right now. Mushrooms. I bet you weren't expecting mushrooms to be so important to this list, but pound for pound, it is one of the most lucrative and rewarding crops a person can grow, outpunching some of the larger crops with ease and spatial efficiency. Mushrooms can be grown indoors and do not take up a particularly high amount of space, yet some varieties can sell for as high as $20 a pound. They also have a fairly quick harvest period, usually grown within 5 or so weeks, meaning you can enjoy a consistent stream of fungi-funded income. There are a couple of drawbacks, the first being that mushrooms need to be sold ASAP due to their relatively short shelf life after being picked. They are also incredibly difficult to transport. They are extremely fragile and can be easily bruised, and they need to be transported quickly due to their aforementioned short shelf life. And they require very precise conditions for their storage. If raw mushrooms are stored without their ideal temperature and moisture levels, the little divas will very quickly begin to rot, and nobody wants a rotten mushroom. Despite these difficulties, they remain a great crop, especially if you can sell locally. Alternatively, there is also the option to dry the mushrooms out, extending their shelf life dramatically. Of course, the dried mushrooms will sell for a substantially lower price than their fresh counterparts, but at the very least, it means you can always make some money off of each and every mushroom. Ginseng. While mushrooms enjoy a fairly quick turnaround from planting to selling, ginseng is toward the opposite end of the spectrum, taking roughly 6 whole years to mature enough to be harvested. This, of course, is a massive time commitment and can put people off of the crop immediately. But if you have the patience and means to stick with it, ginseng can be absurdly profitable. Farmers can earn as much as $200,000 per acre of ginseng over a 6-year period. Taking into account selling seeds, rootlets, and the fully matured roots themselves, it should be noted that at least when it comes to large-scale operations, ginseng growing is not for the amateurs and requires a large amount of work and dedication to pull off, as well as use of specifically designed shade material to provide the right conditions for growth. However, not all crops need to be grown en masse, and small-scale ginseng growth can actually be accomplished simply and cheaply by planting the roots beneath the cover of forests. Ginseng grown this way is called simulated wild ginseng, and it is an increasingly popular variant due to the rarity of the true wild crop. A root of this can sell for anywhere between $300 and $500. Lavender. The really great thing about lavender is its amazing versatility. It's so useful for so many different things that it has great value and so can be grown for excellent profits. It has use in food preparation, aromatherapy oils, and more. Another real boon to lavender is that it can be grown in a variety of climates, requires little management compared to other crops, and is naturally disease resistant to boot, making it one of the simplest projects on the list. All you need to do is for the plant to ensure that the soil is drained. Besides that, you can sit back and think of the future profits. Owing to its versatility, lavender can be sold either fresh or dried and remains a very good investment regardless. It takes about 3 years for the flowers to reach full maturity and be ready for harvesting, which is a fairly long turnaround, but it's still a lot quicker than ginseng and tends to go for a better price than mushrooms. To put things into perspective, a bunch of lavender can be sold to a florist for roughly $10, and a single acre of the crop can produce up to 12,000 bunches. That's somewhere in the region of $120,000 from an acre every 3 years, an insane profit for a relatively easy part of your farm. All of the options we've gone over so far are fantastic and should absolutely be in consideration for any aspiring moneybags farmer. But one crop stands above all others as the most lucrative of them all. We've kept you waiting long enough, so let's get into it. Saffron. Saffron is pretty much universally agreed upon as the most expensive crop in the world and the most expensive herb used in any sort of culinary practice. A pound of this stuff can sell for an astonishing $2,500, and it only requires a quarter acre of land to produce. use. Why is it so incredibly lucrative? Well, it's a real pain to actually grow. You see, saffron itself isn't a plant. It is the stigma strands of the pretty purple crocus flower, and it takes 75,000 of these flowers to grow your pound of saffron. That's a lot of flowers. But okay, let's say you're cool with building this bee dreamland. You'd best hope you live in a relatively dry part of the world, or else you're gonna have to invest in a greenhouse to keep the plants safe from the elements. Once you manage that, growing crocus actually isn't too difficult. You will need to plant the root directly instead of a seed, but besides that, most can manage it. The real problem is the harvesting process itself, which is painfully tedious and intensive. You need to go up to each and every single one of these 75,000 flowers you've just grown and delicately pick out the 3 saffron strands per flower with a pair of tweezers. You really can't afford to rush this process due to how delicate saffron is, so it takes a lot of labor to get your pound. It's an incredibly high amount of work, but nonetheless, saffron might just be worth it. It's also worth noting that as crocus plants grow, they begin to divide, meaning that you can expand your farm for free or sell your extra plants for a quick buck. Goji berries. Goji berries are more of a passive income deal than the other options listed on this list, as with any berry crop, you will not need to replant them and continue to rely upon consistent harvests of their valuable fruits. Goji berries go for roughly $20 per pound, and with it being possible to grow 7,000 pounds of berries per acre, that's a potential return of $140,000 per harvest. The reason of the berries' value is their status as a superfood. They're very nutritious, filled with antioxidants, and are even believed to have anti-aging and anti-cancer properties. There are a few problems with growing goji berry shrubs, of course. The first being that you will need to wait roughly 3 years before getting a real return on investment. This is the amount of time the shrubs need to really mature, and then, from that year onwards, you will get plentiful harvests of berries each and every summer. Another issue to contend with is that you won't be the only one keen to get your hands on the berries. Birds absolutely love them and will gladly pick an entire shrub clean if they're not stopped, meaning you'll probably want some sort of net to keep them away. The last problem is that goji berries are quite difficult to actually harvest. It's a long and physically taxing process of hand-picking each and every berry. Did I mention that the shrubs are thorny? Well, they're thorny, so you're going to either need to be painstakingly careful or invest in some decent gloves to keep your hands safe. All of that said, goji berries remain a great investment for any farmer. Bamboo. Last but certainly not least, bamboo is still relatively rare in the United States, but it is becoming increasingly popular amongst farmers, and for good reason. It is a renewable resource that is excellent for the environment and regrows itself, making it another crop that you can rely on for consistent profit without the need to replant. It can be planted year-round, though there are recommendations for when to plant depending on climate, and it doesn't require too much micromanagement. Just the typical watering and checking of roots to ensure all is well. It can be relatively expensive to get into bamboo farming, costing anywhere between $30 and $60 per young bamboo plant, and though the caretaking plants are low, they do still exist. If this doesn't prove too much of a barrier, however, the potential profit is superb. An acre of roughly 200 bamboo plants can return a profit of up to $25,000, and depending on the variety, it can be harvested after a very reasonable 3 years. It's worth noting that bamboo is an invasive crop, and so you will need to be prepared to take measures to control the plant if necessary. But if you manage to get a handle of it all, you'll be looking at a very profitable part of your farm. And that's our list of the most profitable crops that'll help you on your way to your agriculture-based million. Are there any we missed? Were there any crops that shocked you with just how profitable they are? Let us know in the comments, and until next time, get to work on your garden. Your money is waiting.